Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Emily Crow, Multimedia Editor at Progressive Grocer, and I will be your moderator for this event. We're here today to discuss how grocers can embrace flexible pricing strategies powered by data, science, and optimization, including insights on industry current events and challenges, consumer behavior and pricing response, and why price optimization is key to growth. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to share. First, the audio for this event is streamed through your computer or mobile device. Make sure to unmute your speakers and turn the volume up. One of our goals is to make this session as interactive as possible. You can use the Q&A function on the left side of your screen below the presenter headshots to ask questions throughout the webinar. I'll hold those questions until the end of the presentation and then pose them on your behalf. Your identity will remain confidential to the audience. If we don't have time to answer all of the questions, we will follow up with you after the session concludes via email. You can also use this section if you have any technical questions about the webinar itself, and you will get a direct reply from our webinar producer. Also, if you want to review this webinar or share it, a replay will be available within 2 hours. With us today is Kush Kumar, Senior Category Analyst at Topco Associates. He has more than 5 years of experience working in various consulting roles across the financial, retail, and insurance sectors. He's most interested in how innovative technology can be applied to address the business problems of tomorrow. And fun fact, he is a former professional squash player. Also joining us is Ryan Licari, Chief Revenue Officer at ClearDemand. He has been in the business for more than 25 years and has deep knowledge of complex solutions for enterprises, including GTM and sales leadership experience with Oracle and Salesforce, as well as consulting experience with Accenture. A third-generation grocer, he stocked shelves in his family's grocery store as soon as he was old enough to reach them. Thank you both for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for attending. And Kush, a special thank you for joining, and thanks in advance for your insights. A special thanks to Progressive Grocers. As Emily mentioned, my family's been in the grocery business for 3 generations, and there's been Progressive Grocer magazines scattered around the house as far as I can remember. So there's a little bit of a walk down memory lane with this webinar and our partnership with Progressive Grocers. So thank you so much for that. It's amazing we're still working together today. So for the next few minutes, we're going to talk about a critical top of mind topic, which is likely applicable to everyone in attendance, and that's pricing. In the grocery business, as you know, every penny matters. We can't afford to be just average. Pricing smarter is a key lever for grocers to drive profitability while avoiding alienating key customers. Funny story, I recently met with a potential customer, and he shared a story about his margins. Prior to grocery, he was in the dirt business. You got it. He sold different types of dirts to construction companies, and he actually shared that the margin on dirt is higher than it is in grocery. So we got some challenges. Let's figure out how to get around it. We got something to shoot for there. As you all know, there's challenges aplenty. Inflation lingers. Grocery prices were up 2.6% year over year as of March. Supply chain disruptions still exist. E-commerce competition is super intense. Everyone is vying for shoppers' dollars and loyalties. Shoppers want value, but they're super savvy. You know, they're comparing prices across stores at their fingertips with their phones and expect transparency at a minimum from their grocers. Margins are always under pressure. Operations are complex. Labor costs are a challenge. Logistics are always front of mind. And the price of goods is always in question and potentially increasing that affects the bottom line. At the end of the day, pricing mistakes can lead to overstock, spoilage, and especially in fresh. So you got to be careful of that. Think about this. A single mispriced item, let's say a carton of eggs, can either erode your margins if the customer follows through on the basket and makes the purchase, or worse yet, have a bigger impact and the customer is driven down the street to your competitor. In today's market, pricing isn't just setting a number, it's executing your ultimate brand strategy. Kush, I'm curious about what you're seeing in the market right now and looking forward to your insights. But before we get there, do you think we'd actually touch on challenges in the industry without talking about tariffs? So Caitlin, can you switch to the tariff slide, please? Thank you. As you all know, new tariffs affect up to 40% of our country's trade, including 15% of the food supply, 32% of fresh vegetables, 55% of fruits, 94% of seafoods. It's crazy. Exposure to tariffs is super far reaching and is basically going to affect pretty much every aisle in the store. Inevitably, as a retail grocer, you're going to see cost bumps, and then you have a choice. You raise your cost, you absorb the cost, do you promote different items? There's a lot to think about. How do these grocers handle tariffs in these scenarios? And, Kush, I'm curious what pricing pressures are top of mind that you're seeing from grocers today.
Before I answer your question about tariff and pricing pressure, I wanted to say thank you so much for having me on today. It's great to be here with Progressive Grocers, and congratulations again on your recent merge with Bungie Tech. That's a big move for the industry. See, Ryan, on tariff, the environment right now is very uncertain, not just for grocer, but across all industries. And no one has a clear idea where things are headed, especially with the volatility around tariffs. So at the end of the day, if tariffs are implemented, the cost will ultimately land on consumer. And right now, we are a bit in a holding pattern. Nothing has been officially implemented yet. And just last week, the trade talks in Geneva led to 90 days pause with China, the two biggest economy in the world. These negotiations are moving slowly, and we may be dealing with this uncertainty into next year. So, hopefully we will see a solution soon. When all this is over, we can all focus on business and growth opportunities. At Topco, we are monitoring the situation very closely, and we are staying proactive so our members are not caught off guard. And we are employing mitigation strategies to support them, right? So on pricing pressure, pricing is absolutely the front line in grocery right now. We're in a highly competitive market, and consumers have become more price sensitive than ever. Inflation may have slowed compared to its peak in 2022, but pricing is still significantly higher, more than 20% pre-pandemic level. And that's hitting households' budget hard. So shoppers are adjusting, they're looking for deals, they're switching to private labels, changing how they shop and where they shop. So grocers are under pressure to control the cost, deliver value, and stay competitive, all while managing the complex pricing strategy across thousands of SKUs. So that's why real-time pricing tools and optimization strategies have become very important. It's not like just staying, keeping up anymore. It's about, staying ahead in the game. So at Topco, we are focused on supporting our members with data, insights, and solution to help them navigate pricing pressures.
That's great insight, Kush. Thank you. Before we dive deeper, let's hear from you all. What pricing challenges are you grappling with the most? Take a minute to respond to these answers, if you don't mind. Option A, knowing what competitors, oh boy. Visibility into your competitors, pricing and promotions, finding opportunities to drive profitability, managing pricing across multiple regions or stores, or D, lack of processes to execute optimized prices.
Let's see what our audience is going to choose here, Ryan.
C looks like it has an early lead. Outstanding. Everyone had a chance to respond? Good deal. I think I can send results to the audience. So it looks like we're reasonably even across the four, with C managing prices across multiple regions or stores in the front by a hair. That is great, because we're going to dive into that topic very shortly. Kush, any commentary on what you're seeing here?
No, I think that's the perfect answer for this. That's good. Looking forward to discussing these topics with our audience and sharing what we are learning and seeing in industry right now.
Love it, love it. That sounds great. Appreciate it. All right. Well, let's shift to some pricing fundamentals, if you will. Specifically, How do grocers come up with pricing? You guys all know this, but let's do a quick review. Typically, you receive an MSRP from your supplier or wholesaler. And then what? The category managers go to work. They need to fill the shelves with an amazing assortment, negotiate good deals with their suppliers, smartly price that assortment, and still make money. Caitlin, maybe we should have a second vote, and Emily, on who thinks category managers should get a raise. Anybody want to raise their hand? I think so. So Kush and I have your back on getting you guys a raise. So at the end of the day, how do we help all of you make smarter pricing decisions? First, it's imperative to understand a common pitfall facing category managers and what we refer to as average pricing. What does that mean? Basically, a standard or average price used across all your stores for a product. Average can miss the mark, leading to revenue leakage and customer impacts, and let's figure out why that is. Pricing exercises are typically done in Excel or through an off-the-shelf pricing solution that relies on averages. Average costs, average margins, and the results end up in average-based elasticity models of demand. The problem with average elasticities is that shoppers don't behave based on averages. Averages smooth out important customer signals, and it ignores critical variability in everything that happens with a customer. Simple example, right? Demand for a product in Los Angeles is certainly not the same as what it may be in Columbus, Ohio, or other areas of the country, and consumer budgets vary from place to place. Customer preferences and buying patterns differ by region, season, day of week, you name it. So the one size fits all average pricing model just isn't the right way to approach this. Let's give an example. Pricing engine A relies on averages for elasticity calculations and recommends, let's say, $4.79 for a carton of blueberries because it works in most locations. There is a real chance that this price is missing profit potential in high demand locations and potentially alienating price sensitive customers in other price zones. Not the result we're looking for. As you can imagine, this is super critical when dealing with perishable goods based on their greater cost volatility and heavy comparison shopping and quality, amongst other things. The gap between average and accurate can really add up fast. We've seen studies that retailers using static pricing models or average pricing models can lose up to 10% of their potential margin. And the worst thing is, you might not even realize it's happening, certainly until it's too late. Kush, I'm curious from your vantage point, how are retailers evolving their pricing strategies with these tight margins and high customer expectations?
I think about it like this. Pricing based on average is giving everyone in your store the same size shoe. Yes, it might fit a few people, but for most, it's not going to work. And it definitely won't help perform you at your best. So grocers today are moving beyond that one-size-fits-all approach. Pricing is becoming much more thoughtful, precise, and personalized, right? So in today's grocery world, you just can't have basic markup on everything or copy what a few competitors are doing. That kind of a pricing missing how different each product and each customer really is. So let's think about egg versus olive oil, right? People buy them for different reasons. One might be a weekly staple that drives foot traffic, and other might be a premium product with more margins. You can't treat them the same, and the grocers are starting to fall into this trap. So, and shoppers are being more value driven than ever. We are seeing grocers really level up how they set prices, right? We are seeing a few big shifts are happening in industry right now. First, pricing is becoming much more local and item specific. Retailers are tailoring price not just by product, but by stores based on local demand and competition. And second, they're getting a lot more smarter with data. Instead of guessing, they're using the sales trend, inventory level, competitors' price, and customer behaviors to make informed decisions. On third, more than starting to use more AI and machine learning tools, not just for the sake of technology anymore, but to help predict how customers will respond to price change and recommend better pricing strategies. And finally, there are more investments are happening in competitive intelligence. And I'm sure, Ryan, you're seeing that in your business today. getting a clear picture of what others are doing in real time so they can adjust quickly and stay ahead. All of this while help retailers stay sharp, finding those small pricing wins and protect profit while still while delivering the value customer expects on the item they care most about.
Kush, that's amazing insight. I'm going to keep you on the spot for a hot minute if you don't mind. Any examples that you have potentially that can support that insight?
Yeah, I want to talk about one very simple example here, right, Ryan? So milk, think about milk versus specialty cheese, right? Imagine a grocer who set a price using a simple average method, perhaps applying the standard pricing markup or targeting a single average profit margin across the entire dairy category, right? Milk is a high traffic item. Our members refer to as a key value item. Customers buy it very frequently. They know the price. And if your milk price is significantly higher than the competitors down the street, they might choose to do the entire shopping trip there instead. And even if your prices are competitive, right? Specialty cheese have lower price sensitivity and higher cost. So applying the same average markup might result in underpricing these items relative to the consumer willingness to pay. So that's leaving potential margin on the table. And that's just one example I wanted to highlight, Ryan.
Amazing, Kush. Thanks so much. All right, so we know a little bit about our pitfall. Now look, let's take a look in a little bit of a dive on what better looks like. What do we do to avoid the pitfalls of average that we've been discussing since the start of this webinar? From our opinion at ClearDemand, the journey starts by setting the foundation with rich and accurate input data. High quality competitive intelligence is an amazing place to start. If you know when and where your competitors act and react in near real time, you can respond with urgency and precision. Finding out days and weeks later is just too risky. Next, layer in all those amazing pricing rules that are the foundation of your brand and your entity. Follow that with your point of sale data and cost data with manufacturer trade promotions. All of this rich metadata and all the information that is in essence the foundation of your stores sets up key AI data-driven algorithms to go to work. From there, you can see how shoppers respond to different scenarios with accurate demand modeling. Then you're ready. You can optimize your price. The science behind price optimization provides you the optimum price and in line with your strategy to maximize margin and revenue by specific product and also by specific price zone down to the store level if you choose to. That category manager now has the power. Let's consider another topic that merits some energy with the same principles applying that average may not cut it, but better will certainly help, and that's promotions. As you guys likely know, cannibalization is a real thing in the grocery store. Every promotion is not necessarily a good one. Of course, you want your promotions to drive volume or traffic, but they can also do some harm. A quick example, if you promote product A, it might just steal from product B. Discounting a New York strip steak might spike its volume, but if you're losing sales on ground beef to a private label packaged meat offering, you're not gaining, you're just shifting, right? And that shift is risky. Can you understand and measure that shift? This is the risk of cannibalization at its core. The key to knowing which items to promote, when and how often, driven by market basket analysis, margins, and strategy, as well as the science behind the relationship of those two products and the price between the two, is absolutely critical to effective promotions. Average pricing methods will struggle with this cannibalization analysis in the same fashion. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about ClearDemand. Actually, not yet, Caitlin. There we go. We're going to stick on this slide for just a little bit longer. Bear with me, guys. We're going to talk a little bit about ClearDemand's pricing rules and pricing engine. Pricing rules include all sorts of your pricing rules like ending numbers, price gaps between national and private labels, size and pack parity, margin floors, markdown budgets, state regulations, and competitive price relationships, to name a few. So all the critical pricing rules that you have as the nature of your business. Most models apply these rules after optimization is calculated, typically as a validation check, or they use soft heuristics to approximate rules. This certainly gives you guidance, but is ultimately unreliable and could violate business requirements and generate a less than stellar price recommendation. Super risky. ClearDemand's rules engine does things a little bit differently. We utilize the power of constrained optimization. This is a little bit technical talk, but bear with me. What does this mean? The rules that you have defined in the system are actually built into the optimization process, not validated at the end. The impact of each rule to elasticity is treated uniquely. What does that mean? We can provide recommendations with details on trade-offs if you choose to go in a different pricing direction or you choose to soften a rule. So you can run through various permutations on the impact of specific rule movements on your price and profitability curves. Every price recommendation is compliant and profit is maximized. At the end of the day, the retailer is going to go through less overhead to get to that ultimate recommendation. They're going to have fewer overrides. They're going to have higher trust in the system. And now you'll have less reason to run super expensive and time-consuming compliance audits after the fact. All right, so we jumped ahead. Hopefully you guys saw my Formula One car on the next slide. You guys ready for a fun analogy? Any Formula One fans out there? Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton? If so, connect with me afterwards and we can commiserate about a tough start to the season. As many of you know, and if you don't, I'll explain to you, Formula One publishes a crazy complex technical specification for their cars with harsh penalties for those that violate it. The rule book for engines alone is 179 pages. So analogy that I'll have here, can you imagine designing the highest performance sports car on the planet before checking the rules? Before checking your rules? Absolutely bananas. Same can be said for applying pricing rules after optimization. Bake the rules in as you're doing your design work. Hopefully you guys got a kick out of that, and I'm going to turn it back over to Kush for a little bit more insight. Kush, example, large or small, where pricing science has helped the grocer find an opportunity.
Ryan, thanks for sharing that with our audience. That's exciting for the industry, right? See, retailers can't afford to just guess and go anymore, right? Especially in this margin-tight environment. You know, what you are describing is rule-based optimization that's built into pricing engine. That's exactly the kind of approach that helps grocers gain trust in their tools. And most importantly, it keeps them compliant, competitive, and profitable. Ryan, at end of the day, the goal is to help retailers make smarter, data-driven decisions and improve profitability and competitiveness. One great example in fresh food items, like think about salad or cut fruit or grab-and-go sandwiches, right? These are high-waste products that spoils quickly. And traditionally, stores would rely on a simple rule of thumb. What is that? Mark them down by 50% the day before they expire. But when you look at the data, we saw this blanket approach was leaving money on the table. And sometimes still these items is going to waste. In some cases, a 50% markdown was too sudden. The item would have sold it with just 20 or 30% discounts. In other cases, even slashing the price by half wasn't enough. And the product still ended up in the trash. And that's where the pricing science walked in. The new way of using data price science is like giving your store a smarter brain. It looks at things like historical sales or pricing data, inventory level or holiday or big events are coming up that might make people buy more. So retailers could make a real-time pricing decision that were far more accurate based on this, instead of one-size-fits-all markdown, right? So stores started to using dynamic pricing to match the true demand. And what was the results? Using the smarter data-driven approach, grocers start to throw less food in waste, good for the environment, make more money because now they're better at finding the right price for each item before it spoils. And that's just a great example how even a small pricing improvement when powered by data can create big value.
Kush, that's amazing. Thanks for the insight, and I love your passion on this topic. It's infectious for sure. Okay, so bear with me. We're going a little bit into the depths of some details again. We're going to go back and talk about that category manager, where all of this pressure to get this equation right sits. The day-to-day work of a category manager comes fast. The price changes comes fast. The dealing with vendors comes fast. And unfortunately, that leads to price decisions that can be reactive. You're fighting fires and you're dealing with whatever the current situation is at hand, right? That might be an outage in strawberries because there was, a spoilage in Salinas or otherwise. A lot going on. So how can we help? If you put in the right solution for pricing in place, pricing the category for regular pricing, promotions, and even clearance scenarios becomes proactive. You can align it and it becomes strategy-led, supported by data and AI. Category and pricing teams can now focus on the big picture and strategy, which is certainly more paramount than and more enjoyable than jockeying data in spreadsheets. There's plenty of data to support this notion, including a recent McKinsey study showing that retailers who automate 60% of their pricing decisions free up over 30% of their time for other things like strategic planning. I don't know about you guys, but I would certainly take 30% of my time back. So let's get into the details of this slide very quickly. This is one of my favorites. It represents ClearDemand's sweet spot rule. This rule identifies the optimum price range for a product bounded by the price points that maximize profit and revenue. The sweet spot rule helps you as a category manager navigate the trade-offs between maximizing sales volume and achieving higher margins, guiding you to a price point that aligns with your strategic goals. This is the cool thing about the sweet spot. The sweet spot automatically recalculates as you change or soften rules. You can then assess how sensitive customers are to price changes for each item based on any number of variables. This gives grocers an accurate look at how price adjustments impact demand across the variability of your rules, and again, a near real-time basis. Very, very powerful stuff. Remember that tariff quandary we talked about at the beginning of our chat? ClearDemand doesn't just set prices. We're going to help empower you make smarter decisions and faster. There's some proof behind it as well, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, when you put all this together, what happens? You get some cool results. ClearDemand partners with grocery retailers like you to transform pricing. The outcomes tend to speak for themselves. One that we're super, super proud of is a recent customer that we were able to help them increase their gross profit by $6 million in just over 2 years. How was that accomplished? They built very specific localized price zones to avoid those averages that we talked about before. At the same time, they executed a SKU rationalization strategy, which really helped optimize their assortment. And they transformed their pricing exercises across their resources from manual to a really scalable profit engine and automation through ClearDemand. So a couple things to just touch on from a ClearDemand price optimization perspective. Again, elasticity modeling. We set the right price for you across each SKU and each store based on all your rules at the time of optimization. That constraint optimization that we talked about respects your rules. We drive automation, getting rid of all those manual tasks and saving your category managers a ton of time to focus on more strategic tasks. We're going to help also track and boost compliance, which just drives better execution across the board. And most importantly, we can measure the ROI of every price change you make, both simulated and actual. So you want to make sure that you understand the impacts of the price changes you make on the actual results that you're seeing in the store and online. Okay, Kush, not enough talking for me. How do you see the role of pricing technology change the day-to-day work of the category teams that you're engaging with in your partners?
Oh, before I answer your question, I just wanted to say that that's a powerful example. And honestly, the kind of transformation is exactly where I see the role of pricing technology is going. For category teams, gathering price used to be heavily manual, right? Reactive process. They would spend hours pulling report, checking spreadsheets, and adjusting price by the instant or based on comp intel. It was time consuming. And frankly, it's hard to scale, especially across thousands of SKUs and many different locations. What pricing technology like ClearDemand is doing, it's flipping the entire model. First, it's taking a lot of manual burden off their plate. Tasks that used to take hours, like price check, comp matching, tracking, are now automated. That frees up the category managers to focus more on strategic work. For example, building smarter assortment, identifying margin opportunities, and planning better promotions. And second, it brings confidence to the decision-making process. With elasticity modeling and constraint optimization, categories teams aren't just guessing. They're making a decision grounded in real demand data, actual business rules that helps reduce pricing errors, unnecessary overrides, or margin leakage. And third, the visibility in game changing, right? So now teams are actually measuring the impact of their pricing moves, seeing what's working, what needs adjustment, and how to optimize in real time. That kind of a feedback was just not available. And it's happening because technology is improving every single day. So to me, pricing is no longer just a support tool. It's becoming a central drive to day-to-day category strategy. It helps team move faster, act smarter, and ultimately drive better financial results while staying customer focused. Thank you, Ryan. Over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kush. Okay, to wrap things up, grocers, we have what I think is a pretty cool special offer to get you guys started down this path. We at ClearDemand are offering a free pricing benchmark. Our team will share the link with you after this webinar so you can get access to the details. But essentially, we'll work with you to look at a handful of key products in a category of your choice across 3 competitors, and we'll capture the pricing information and other competitive data to share with you some of those interesting insights and start the journey to the pricing promised land. Thank you, Kush. Thank you, Emily. We appreciate you guys taking the time, and I think we'll now open the floor for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kush and Ryan, for an incredibly informative presentation. As Ryan mentioned, we are all set to go into our audience Q&A, and we are already receiving some wonderful questions. But remember to submit your questions using the Q&A feature on the left side of your screen if you haven't already done so. Also, if we run out of time before getting to your questions, we will get back to you privately with a response. Our first question, can you give some examples of how AI and machine learning are being implemented to make pricing decisions today?
Yeah, absolutely. I can certainly give a couple, and then Kush would love to understand your answer. So, AI and machine learning is very imperative in competitive intelligence, right? So if you are trying to basically see where your product is in position versus a competitor, you need to understand like for like in products. So AI and machine learning plays a heavy part in understanding a product match between your offering and the competitor down the street, so you're not comparing apples and oranges. So that one is certainly critical. And it's interesting, AI and machine learning is the topic at hand. It's been in data science for, a long time, especially the machine learning capabilities. So, the models that we use to apply those rules have been using machine learning and AI to improve themselves for a number of years, doing some things that are pretty incredible with folks that are way smarter than I am. So those are 2 critical areas that we have leaned into. I think the third that is coming quickly is agent-based activity. So where you can basically, ask AI agents the types of questions that you'd want to have answered on your pricing scenarios, and the agent will kind of guide you through the rules and through the results. That certainly is tricky, and you need to make sure you're going to get the right answers before we turn it over to the AI agents. But certainly there's amazing potential there, I think, in the near future.
Great. Kush, did you have anything to add on that one?
I think Ryan touched on some very critical points. If you look at how technology is improving, we have to look at how far we have come. If you go back to 2010 and look at AI and machine learning, nobody was talking about it, but it was still there. It's like the more data you feed into the system, the better answers you're going to get every single time. And that's where every company out there is using AI and machine learning. Earlier we used to do price checking and optimization based on a spreadsheet or different tools, right? Now you're able to get your markup or what your margins are just based like in a couple of seconds. So I think we have come so far in 2025 compared to 2010, and we are improving every single day. So we are going in the right direction. Technology is improving, as we just mentioned during the webinar. I think it's great how far we have come if I look back and compared to today.
Great. Another question. This sounds great if you're a large retailer, but can smaller retailers afford a solution that does all of this? Ryan, what's your take on that?
Yeah, great question. There's some wonderful partnerships out there, including the likes of Topco that, enable more scale for the smaller retailers than what they might be able to do on their own. So, the notion of that Topco partnership in other areas is wonderful. The same principles apply to access to price optimization technology, right? So we absolutely can scale down to cost affordable solutions for basically anybody that has the horsepower in their category management team to be able to effectively analyze the data that's coming out of it and effectively make the price changes in the store, whether you're using ESLs or just manual price changes across the store. So I think if you have an analyst function that can handle some of these price changes and analysis, we can scale down to meet that for sure. And we've proven that in our customer base.
Great. Another question, how does a retailer prioritize investing on strategic pricing or gross price versus tactical pricing or promotion pricing?
Boy, that's a good question, right? I think a lot of that, and Kush, I would love your take on this, is going to depend on your brand's strategy, right? Like how you want to position yourself in the market, I think is the overall scenario. And we alluded to a few of the key elements of this, right? Like how do regular prices and promotional prices impact one another through that cannibalization effort, right? So there's a number of ways to make sure, retail price optimization ebbs and flows effectively with promotional optimization. And, ClearDemand has the capability to do that because they are 100% related. But certainly you want to have the overall umbrella of your strategy or brand, whether you're everyday low price, whether you're high, low, whatever that may be, and certainly instill that behavior in your pricing so it doesn't have any negative impact to customer sentiment.
Yeah, I think I'll add a couple of points to what Ryan just said. I think it's depend on every business strategy because every business is different and every business has a different plan and different strategy, right? So it's totally depend on what you want to set in your tool. This tool is very flexible. It's end of the day, you have to decide what's right for your business and what you are trying to gain. That's very important over here.
Great. Another question, if an analyst has no additional tools, how would you recommend they start a price analysis on their own, possibly with Microsoft tools?
Certainly. I think, some of the premise that I walk through, right? Capturing competitive data, you can model out in essence, a lot of the things that we're doing. The challenge that you'll have with Excel is, as in any other scenario, the calculations and the science you'll have to create on your own. And then managing what tends to be a large amount of data becomes somewhat burdensome in Excel. So I think you can get, some initial analysis of pricing and performance for sure. I think in any other, technology scenario, Excel has some limitations that I think you'll run into just in terms of sizes of your data set, the science calculation behind it, the testing of that science, and just the scalability, if that makes sense. But certainly a good place to start. It is certainly better than using your gut.
Great. Kush, the next question is for you. How do you utilize these tools when high quality competitive data might not be available for independent stores?
See, it's like I personally, Topco doesn't, utilize these tools. We recommend to our members to use, different tools to, take advantage of what's happening in industry, right? Our focus is to recommend how they can benefit in their business, right? It's totally depend, what is the size of the retailers, what they're trying to achieve. End of the day, sometimes you want to start with just price checking, not optimization. Right? You start slowly and see if you're seeing the improvement. Idea is to just start somewhere, as Ryan just said it in last question about, can retailers use the spreadsheet? I mean, if you're using this spreadsheet to calculate all this math and come up with the answer, you're probably wasting so much time, right? You're wasting 6 hours to come to a conclusion where this platform can give you something in just 30 seconds. So if you have that much of time available in your day today, please go ahead and keep doing that. But, there are smarter tools. That's why AI has come up, machine learning. It can feed data in a couple of seconds and give you the answer. So, it depends, which path do you want to take,
Great. And for either of you, are there any pricing strategy courses or educational programs available that you know of?
Well, that's a really good one. I mean, certainly a foundation in statistics and statistical modeling to understand heuristics, to understand, constraint modeling, et cetera. That's some what I would consider deep end of the pool stuff. And thank goodness we have some amazing, data science folks that understand that to a very amazing degree at headquarters. So, certainly having that background to do some advanced modeling is helpful. And then you'd have to apply that obviously to the pricing componentry for retail grocery. But that foundation is paramount, right? And that, any community college, probably courses online, you can read up on it, is probably a pretty good place to start. And we're happy to meet with you to talk through some of those foundational details as well. But, unfortunately that foundation in statistics is pretty paramount for something like this.
Great. Speaking of foundational beginnings and what we've been discussing a little bit, a very simple question: how do you get started? It might seem overwhelming for someone in their team as they manage pricing decisions today with Excel. Where do they start?
Yeah, great question. So, I do think that element of understanding your goals and your strategy, understanding how you price today, and basically where you want to go, right? So having your goalpost of where you want to go is really, really good to lay out. And then what I would recommend is, talking to vendors in the industry, we're happy to do it, that can help recommend a path from A to B, right? It could be, taking a path of just understanding your competitive intelligence, which is reasonably straightforward to get access to. So you can make, relatively quick pricing moves to align with some of the bigger guys that maybe you can't do today. And then from there, you can add layers of sophistication. Maybe you pick a category that is critical to you to look at competitive data and then start to run some elasticity modeling. So there's a number of ways that you can do it. What I would suggest is certainly, talk to some experts in the field, whether it's a vendor, whether it's, some consulting organizations. There's a number out there that specialize in this area that can help just kind of outline that crawl, walk, run approach, if you will.
Great. And how is ClearDemand's approach to price optimization different from other vendors?
We have a wonderful partnership with folks like Topco and Kush, which is a great start. And hopefully, we alluded to some of that in the in the presentation, right? The way that we approach elasticity modeling, which at the end of the day drives that sweet spot analysis, if you will, optimum profit and optimum revenue. The way that we apply rules with that constrained optimization is unique. It does make your modeling what we believe is more accurate. The other thing that is certainly unique, and Kush mentioned this in the beginning, and Kush, thank you again for those accolades. We acquired a company called Bungee Tech, which does world-class competitive intelligence, and our ability to basically capture near real-time, very, very accurate, really robust competitive intelligence as a key input to those optimization models is really, really nice to be able to get ahead of the curve. So I think those are two things. The third follow-up to that is the relationship between, related to a question earlier, regular pricing, promotional pricing, and clearance pricing. They are all related hand in hand, right? So if you understand the impact of your promotional pricing on regular, vice versa, and add in clearance, which we do that very, very well, that's hard to do. And certainly you want to have those insights before you run, promotions, in essence, running that somewhat blindly. So I hope that helps.
Great. And we've mentioned elasticity. How often is it updated, and how do you determine elasticity for a specific item?
Sure. In terms of updates, you can rerun these at your pleasure. We typically see, daily refreshes, right? So when the inputs change, or when you're trying to model out various changes in your rules, like you want to rerun your elasticity models. So you can do that, basically at your pleasure, but we see it probably at most once a day, unless there's, maybe a new category that you're trying to analyze or something like that. In terms of how we calculate our elasticity, I'm going to punt that to the really smart data scientists that we talked about if you want to get in those details. But the key part, right, like you basically load in all that key and rich metadata that we talked about. We'll apply your pricing rules, which you enter into the tool. And then from there, the science does the work. Out comes the recommendation, and then you can take the optimization path from there on softening rules, adjusting rules, and determining what price zones that you have, et cetera. So a lot of variables go into it, but that's basically how we get going.
Great. And does ClearDemand offer any ability to assist with pharmacy retail pricing?
Yes, we do. Yes, happy to help there.
Wonderful. So in addition to optimization, which we've been talking about, someone's asking about ClearDemand's competitive intelligence platform. Is that something you can speak to, Ryan?
Sure. Anything specific there, or just was mentioned in the question?
Just mentioned in a question. Yep.
I gotcha. Yeah. So from a competitive intelligence scenario, a couple things that are really important that, we think we do reasonably well. That is basically being able to collect the data without getting blocked by various websites, which happens quite a bit. We have some elegant technology that does enable that activity consistency, if you will. You also need to be able to handle massive amounts of data, right? If you think you have, 50,000 products that you're comparing across maybe 10 competitors, and there's 20 zones. I'm not a mathematician, but that math adds up quickly. And, based on that machine learning element and AI element to match those competitors' products with yours, you need to keep the history to make sure that those products continue to be matched at an effective rate. So the amount of data gets pretty stinking extreme. And then basically being able to elegantly make sense of those data sets, if you will, in terms of price optimization beyond that is really, really critical. So those are the key kind of elements for price optimization, right? Competitive intelligence, right? It's the data volume, not getting pinched and kicked out of sites in places that you're trying to capture that data. And then also the ability to really smartly capture product matches and move that going forward at scale.
Wonderful. Well, we are about out of time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you again to Ryan and Kush for being here with us and for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Kush.
Thank you all.
Have a great afternoon, and thank you for joining us.